Hey everybody, it's Marissa. I just wanted to show you what happens with Google. So I know that we're learning really to use social media to drive traffic to your website in general, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it's structured within the class. But on every day, I try to do several of these screencasts to show people small businesses everywhere. So like I work with roofers and landscapers and just even like acupuncturists to help them understand how Google works and how to make the most of Google search from the back end perspective. So it's kind of like the words on the page. And so I think it's really important for you to understand if the complete strategy is to use social media to drive the traffic, then that's fine. But if you're hoping to win points with the search engines, this is what I'm going to go over a little bit. So especially when you're putting the words on your website, you are thoughtful about how you structure it. So I'm going to take New Orleans as an example, since somebody was interested in New Orleans, and it's where I spent my high school years. And originally I would have thought that there's no room to wiggle, and I think you said, is the market too saturated to do New Orleans? And the simple answer is no. I was actually really surprised when I looked at this. So the way it works is Google's job and any search engine's job is to keep me as a consumer coming back to use that specific search engine as a trusted resource. So somebody like me, what happens is I go in and I search for, New Orleans, and this is what you'd want to play around with, but New Orleans tour, like travel agent, right? Like New Orleans tours, things to do in New Orleans, right? And then all of this comes up. And so this first space is the pay to play, the Google ad space. And I'm certainly happy to help people with this. I structure these out all the time, and people waste a lot of money and time on Google ads very quickly if you don't understand the nuances. So that's something just to think about. And then this section is that map section. There are pros and cons to using this section. I like it for a lot of my localized businesses. And so the ingredients to getting into this section and being ranked in that top 5 spot is really, there's a checklist that you need to know all about. Happy to show you that if that's your area. But this is that area that I wanted to show you specifically. So this is that organic section where you're not paying to play. It's questions of what is happening with your website and why does this one show up before any of the other ones on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. And this is what I want to show you. So what I did is I grabbed, so first search New Orleans travel agent, I grabbed this #1 organic search result, and this is what happens. So this in here, this is Ahrefs. It allows me to compare and contrast different websites. So if you have a website in mind that you want me to take a look at, I can put it in here and show you. So this is when we talk about on-page search engine optimization. So these are the words on the page. So what happens is Google essentially goes through your entire website almost like with a highlighter. Like picture like one of my students going through and highlighting the important words on your website. So it is, and this is, it's neworleans.com. So it's got the best domain name, right? Like ever for New Orleans. And so they are getting 858,000 people clicking on their website every month, because they have almost 60,000 keywords highlighted on their website, according to Google. Now, Google chooses what words you can point to Google, what words to help highlight, but they just have a massive website. You're competing against, when you look at their website, you're competing against all of the pages of content that they have. It's like neworleans.com is turning in a full dissertation and you're trying to compete against them as a smaller website. And so that's really where the strategy comes in, and we can talk about that. And then here's their paid traffic. So this is kind of a little bit of insight on what they pay for. Now, this area is the referring domain. So this is essentially, think about it as referrals, or the numbers of letters of recommendation are out there about their company website. So if they are registered in online directories like Yelp, Glassdoor, like even Facebook, Yellow Pages, Chamber of Commerce, plus if a mommy blogger, for instance, mentions their website, or a different travel agency mentions their website as a resource. So that is what referring domains is. And obviously, this is a different beast. So this is an official New Orleans tourism website. But what I like to do when I go in and help people, people hire me all the time to go in, and what I do like a private investigator is I click on the organic keywords and I can really see and hear what is getting them traffic. So for instance, obviously Super Bowl 2025 date got them a lot of traffic. So a bunch of people clicked on their website because this was a big search topic. And then you can look down here, like Mardi Gras 2025, 383,000 people search for that phrase a month. This is the level of keyword difficulty. So this is how difficult it is to rank, like how many other people's websites mentioned this phrase specifically. So they were getting basically almost 30,000 of their traffic for that month was based on the fact that they had this information on their website and they were position number 5 in the search results for this phrase. And so this may feel daunting, but this is what I wanted to show you. Things to do in New Orleans. It's a great topic for people who are searching for New Orleans. It's got basically almost 40,000 people search for that phrase every month. It's got a 4-level difficulty. So this is, if I were to pick what words to put on a page, I would pick these words around like blog posts, a specific drop down on a website about this topic, because this many people are searching for it and it's a less competitive market. And also like this where is the Super Bowl, it might not translate into people booking something with you. And so when I work with people, this is what I do. We go through and we try to find these types of phrases. So these are kind of like people who are thinking about visiting or spending a staycation, like those kind of things. It generates 4 KD and they're position number 2 for that phrase. So with some work and some pages around this topic, you could also rank for that. And let me just show you so I popped in a couple different travel agencies, and this guy does free tours. So his markets might be a little bit different, but this gives you a clue. Garden District walking tour. 1,000 people search for that phrase every month. It's got a 3-level difficulty. So you could easily build out a page dedicated to this topic so that at the top it says, like, say your name of your company was New Orleans Destination Travel Guide.com. And then you have a separate page that's dedicated to the Garden District walking tour. So that would lead you to people clicking on your site pretty easily, because not a lot of other people have that phrase specifically on their website in a way that Google would recognize it. And they have like free walking tours. You could talk about that. This is kind of what I do. So Frenchman Street restaurants, 350 people search for that, for instance, a month, which is great, but look how difficult it is to rank. So you would have to do a lot of work with, hire somebody like me, to be honest, to like get into this search engine result, because it's a more competitive space. So I would stay away from that. And so really what I do is I'm looking for purchase. So best live music New Orleans, really competitive and not a high volume monthly search. That's really how this kind of thing works. I can go in here and I can search for instance, let's just put in, add a filter. I can search for tour on the bigger site. And we can see, so New Orleans tour. And so I would stay away from this kind of phrasing because it's a really competitive. And here's tour Taylor Swift must have come. Cemetery tour New Orleans. That's a great phrase to have. 1,400 people search for that with a 14-level difficulty, and it's probably something people pay for. They're usually warned not to just go walking. French Quarter walking tour, 800 people search for it with a 5-level difficulty. The food tour is more difficult to rank for, but sometimes when I go in here, I can usually find, other ways to phrase things. And so that's a little bit about how it works. New Orleans graveyard tour. Here's a really good example. New Orleans graveyard tour is the phrase. 350 people a month search for it with a 9-level difficulty. And then if you go back up here, where was the one that was the tour? Cemetery. So cemetery tour, 1,400 people search for it with this phrasing with a 14-level difficulty. And so that's really what happens. And so you want to think about it from a structure of your website. This is what I think where a lot of people fall apart when it comes to thinking about this strategy. So you could have a really beautiful, fancy, I call it like a name card website that when you give it to people in your social media, or if you hand it to people in person or put it at the bottom of your email and they click on it, That is one strategy. But if you're hoping to get found in the search results on a search engine, this is where you have to think about it. Google is looking to keep me coming back to use Google as a trusted source. And so it is looking through every word on your website, highlighting words. And so for every kind of 100 words on your website, as long as you have that phrase, so say you wanted to rank for Cemetery Tour New Orleans, you need to have 100 words on that page that says, so the top line, the H1 tag says Cemetery Tour New Orleans. And then you need to have at least 100 words on that page with this phrase put in that 100 words 4 times. And so for each 100 words, you get essentially a new keyword that you can rank for. And so that's why a lot of people have robust multi-page websites, because they want to make sure that you're essentially turning in like a dissertation level website. Now you don't have to do that, but what I do encourage is you don't just have like a services tab at the top and then have all of your services on one page. Instead, you want to have cemetery tours, and then, so it has its own page. And then you go in French Quarter walking tours, has its own page. And that's the kind of thing. And so think about it like when I design a website, I want to have 1,500 words on the main page, because that gives me about 15 really good keyword terms that I can put on it. And each additional page, I have 300 to 500 words on it, with thinking through specifically how to phrase the words right. So I assume that we're going to learn some of this week, but I do like to do these. I try to do a couple every day for people to help them understand how keyword structuring works. I get really sad when I go in and I see somebody who spent time and energy and money building out a website, but they don't, like, just things like for instance, I was helping out a local landscaper who was like, nobody's calling me, and I looked and they mentioned Charleston once in the address of the business, but they didn't mention it throughout the website. So Google wasn't confident that they were even in Charleston. And so their website was never being found through Google because it was way down on the list. Like, Google's not going to risk upsetting me and having me feel frustrated with using Google. So when in doubt, it's going to put the websites on there that have, and like, if he wants to do hardscaping, then we need to make sure he has on the front page, it talks about hardscaping in Charleston, South Carolina. And then he has an additional page about hardscaping in Charleston, South Carolina. He might even have a page in Mount Pleasant, which is a neighboring city, about hardscaping, in Mount Pleasant. And so that's really how it works. You need to tell Google, this is what you do. This is the type of person that you want. This is the phrasing that you want to really think about. So it's worth spending some time and some energy. And I know that you can technically use Google Trends, but this is a really great way to see. And then over time, so if you have a business that you want me to look at, I'm happy to do that. But like, over time, it's important to check in with somebody like me that can pull up Ahrefs and look at your competitors and look to see what words you might be missing out on that might convert into dollars.